Welcome to the Counterattack Playthrough Series. We're playing Empire of the Sun. It's the campaign scenario. This is turn 2, and this is part 2 of turn 2. Part 1 was the prior video, and it just got a little long, so wanted to break it up. So yeah, we're just going to continue on. I have some errors to correct, thanks to everybody giving me strategic advice, and especially correcting errors. So I'm going to go over a few things. First, an error in game state. If you recall, the Allies played the Arcadia Conference and Japanese Army-Navy dispute. And then I was kind of looking at the Allied cards, and I have 4 cards in my hand. 2 plus 4 is 6. They're only supposed to have 5. I do not know what I did. Maybe when I took Arcadia Conference as a special card, I just miscounted or something. So I'm going to do something painful, and I'm going to pick one of these at random. Alright, we're going to do number 3. And that's going to get shuffled back into the deck. That's actually a pretty good one to lose since the Japanese already have inter-service rivalry. Okay, corrected that gaffe. Okay, now for a rules error I made. If you recall, at the beginning of the turn, or in the first half anyway, I did some transport of army units down to here, and then some cruised over to here. Let's see, yeah. So I shipped those units, and I used amphibious shipping points. But since I moved them from a friendly port to a friendly port, that's not an amphibious assault, so I shouldn't be using amphibious shipping points. So let's fix that. Here's the strategic record track, which is basically the track for everything that's not on those other tracks up there. We can see here the Japanese have 7 amphibious shipping points available for amphibious assaults, and they've used 2 of them. So I went 1, 2 when I moved those guys. So we'll just move this back. They have not used any. And as a reminder, they are in inter-service rivalry, so they only have half as many ASPs available, rounded up. Another error, basically a comment I made. I was thinking, oh, I'd like to amphibious assault this coastal hex. And then I said, oh, well, I can't do that because I only get 1 battle hex, and I'm already using, I think it was Manila was the battle hex, or just north of Manila. So I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Turns out, if you amphibiously insult an empty coastal hex, it doesn't count as a battle hex. So it's just sort of a freebie. So I would have preferred to land there. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and correct that state. I don't really like rolling back mistakes, but I think it will make the game a little better in this case. So yeah. One last error in my commentary. When I was placing an air reinforcement, I said reinforcements go at a in supply, in activation range, port, port hex. That's only true for ground and naval units. Aircraft just have to go to an airfield. So when I was trying to place this an aircraft here, and I'm like, oh no, I can't put it there. There's no port. I could have put it there because it was in supply and activation range and at a friendly airfield. All right, I think we're going to get moving into the next card play. I think it might be the Japanese. Oh, actually it's the Allies card play because the Japanese have played 3 cards, the Allies 2. Remember the Japanese started with 7 cards, the Allies 5, after I corrected things. That means the Allies get 2 passes to bring them up to 7 actions. And so I was thinking I might pass as the Allies. I can pass and then, you know, just sort of watch what the Japanese do, and then I can react later. But I was kind of looking in here. I had a lot of advice online about using the ABDA, perhaps trying to save the units in Singapore and Kuantan here. By the way, these are Indian units. This is a British headquarters, and that is an Australian unit. They're all Commonwealth. They're all basically the same nationality. That's why they're all tan background, but each sort of nationality within the Commonwealth has their own colors, and I think there might be a fourth. I think the New Zealanders might be in this game as well. So yeah, so it's sort of a brown is India, yellow Australia, reddish British. But anyway, it might be nice to try to save these guys, but I was trying to piece together a way to save them. Like, for example, the CVL, this aircraft, and this aircraft are projecting, well, actually not the CVL. These two aircraft are projecting zones of influence over Singapore and Kuantan. That means I cannot trace a activation path from the ABDA. Why would I try to do that with the ABDA anyway? Well, I was looking at the Allied Headquarters National Command chart, and I see a joint headquarters, which is a blue one, can command US, Commonwealth, Chinese, and Dutch units. So that'd be a good one to do. Plus it has a long range. So I was thinking, okay, how can I use the ABDA to activate these guys? Well, one of the key parts of the game is to try to suppress enemy zones of influence. I think I mentioned this in a prior video, but basically non-long-range bomber aircraft can cancel out enemy zones of influence. And I know down in here, there's a Dutch aircraft unit. It might not be the greatest unit, but it can still cancel zones of influence. It can fly and still do combat at range of 2, but it could also fly without doing combat because its extended range is in parentheses at an extended range of 4. So I was thinking, okay, well, I could play like a 3-ops card. I could make him go like 1, 2, 1, and then 1, 2, up to here maybe, and then try to negate the zone of influence of like this aircraft. But I would also need to negate this one. So maybe so if he goes there, he would exert a zone of influence out here. He'd negate the zones of influence of, those Japanese aircraft and open up an activation path to these areas. But when you activate a headquarters, in an offensive, you activate a headquarters first. Then you activate units within activation range. So I wouldn't be able to activate these guys to save them, to maybe get them out of this area. Because the aircraft wouldn't have activated and then moved to free up the zones of influence. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but essentially I can't save them with the ABDA on this turn. I would have to like fly my aircraft up to here and then on the next card play try to get them out of there. But by then the Japanese may have just destroyed the aircraft. So I think I need to find another way to get them out. Okay, I've thought a lot about this. I was thinking of even flying like the Dutch aircraft. It could actually get up to Manila, but no matter what I do, I can't activate the units in the Philippines or in Malaya to try to evacuate them this turn. The aircraft would have to go sit there to cancel out the zones of influence for a whole turn, and I'm going to play the Japanese. I'm going to try to kill that thing right off the bat. So I'm going to try to preserve that aircraft down in Java. And so I thought long and hard. I can't see any good down here that I can do anything with. I do want to kind of reinforce Java a little. I think I can do that. I was kind of looking at these ships of mine here. They're all very poor quality. And I was imagining the Japanese fleet, they're just, just like historically, they're just going to slowly participate in the assault down here, and eventually on the Japanese own terms, they're going to just destroy all those ships. So maybe I was thinking this harebrained idea that maybe I will send these ships on the offensive. Like, they're going to die eventually. I don't think they're too scary to the Japanese. So maybe we'll conduct a raid with them. So yeah, you can tell me how dumb this is on the YouTube comments. So let's activate. Well, let's pick an activation card. So this is Doolittle Raid that increases U.S. political will. It's worth a 3-OC. I want to save this to last, I think. So we'll set off to the side. This is a Southeast Asian Command event. That would be activating like allied units up in here. I think I want to use that, so we'll put that off to the side. And that leaves this Invasion of Japan card, which we can't invade Japan, of course, so we'll just play it as a 3-Ock. Goes the Allied discard. And with a 3-Ock, we activate a headquarters. I'm going to activate ABDA. Has an efficiency of 1, so 1 plus the 3-Ock is 4. I can activate 4 units. And let's see, the 4 units I'm going to activate. I want to activate Force Z, this Dutch light cruiser group, and this American destroyer group. And we'll leave this very light and wounded American cruiser group behind. So there's 3 units there. And then I think I can activate this fairly strong Australian unit down here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. So activate them. Okay, now to move the units. So this guy's just going to do a transport. That was from port to port. That was a 3-Ock card. So it can go 15 moves. Now there's a concept called strategic transport, I think, where basically you can double the distance you go as long as you're not, like, you know, going through enemy areas and things like that. But I don't need to worry about it. So I think I'm going to transport these guys onto Java, Batavia or Surabaya. I don't know how to pronounce any of the names in this region of the world. But yeah, I think we might want to grab Surabaya because that's a good spot, right? It's a resource hex, has an airfield and a port. Problem with Batavia is it has an airfield and a port, and it's adjacent to the ABDA headquarters. So actually, maybe it's better to go there. So let's see. Can these guys get there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. And it's outside of the zone of influence of the enemy. So, okay, so they moved up there to reinforce Java. I need to scrounge up another unit to protect Surabaya at some point. And now for the harebrained part of my offensive. This force, this ragtag group of ships, it's going to make a raid. They're going to raid, hopefully, without being detected, because it's a surprise attack by default, and the offensive card rating is 3, so it's a 30% chance this offensive will be detected. I'm willing to bet these ships on the 70% chance of being undetected. So they can go 15. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're going to try to sink the Zuiho. Why the heck am I doing this? Well, I feel these ships are going to die pretty quick anyway, so let's use them on our own terms. Also, you know, while that might not be the most powerful ship, it has aircraft, right? And so it can really help with like amphibious assaults and things, and just in general battles, because yeah, you can get the ship bonus and the aircraft bonus in ground combat, for example. So yeah, we're going to try to get that guy. So now I'm declaring the battle hex for the offensive, which is this, of course. And then before we roll to see if the Japanese can react, I kind of forgot one aspect of this game, which is I'm so forgetful. That's why I can play a card-driven game solo. One thing I forgot is there's a couple other kinds of ways the Japanese can react besides rolling that die. For example, if you look in the Japanese card hand, they have 2 reaction cards. One's a weather card that can cancel the offensive altogether, so all the allies would just have to go back to where they started. That would just delay the inevitable. Like they could just play another card and do this exact same attack. So I'm looking at this guy. I don't know if this is the time to use this card, but use it or lose it. I think I'm going to do this. This will change the surprise attack to an intercept automatically. Then I get another card. Yeah, and then I could probably bring in some big guns and take out the ragtag allied fleet. So, you know, that was dumb of me, but I don't know. Learning the game. So yes, so the Japanese are going to play this. We changed our code and whatever. Okay, so it's now an intercept, which means the Japanese get to activate reaction forces, and then we're going to draw another card. The Japanese drew the Tainan air unit reinforcement. That's good. Looks like a nice aircraft. Okay, so put that in our pile. And then I'm marking on the strategic record track that the Japanese drew a card. The reason I'm doing that is I think you're only allowed to draw 3 cards, and the US already drew 1. So for the reaction, well, oops. The Japanese headquarters is right under here, south headquarters. The 3 plus 1 for the efficiency, that's 4 units. So yeah, this is going to be pretty bad for the Allies. So 4 units. Well, yeah, the Zuiho is one of them. Well, interesting. I don't even need to activate the Zuiho because it's going to be in that battle no matter what. So yeah, let me scour the map for some good units to participate here. Okay, I think we're going to activate these ships down in Mindanao. That is the Ryujo, a very light carrier, and the Nagato, my favorite ship so far. So that's 2. And then, I don't know, maybe these guys. Let's do the Congo. You know, I am risking battleships here, but I think that's okay. And then the Nachi. Okay, so activated all those. Actually, let's not activate the Nachi. Instead, I will activate the Zuiho. We'll see why in a minute. Now to move the reaction units. So, yeah, we'll move the Congo in. We'll move the Nagato in, putting them at risk. The Ryujo, it's going to move just to within 3 hexes of the battle hex. Since it's a light carrier, it can do that. And these guys are in here. And then the reason I activated this guy, nothing prevents you from activating a unit in the battle hex. You don't have to. And air and naval units are allowed to move out of it, but they must still participate in the battle. So, you know, for example, I can't just take off. I have to stick around close enough to participate in the battle. But I'm going to sail out to, yeah, let's go to the Ryujo here. And basically what that allows me to do is participate in the battle. But since these units are just ordinary ships and they don't have any aircraft, these guys cannot be harmed by them. Of course, the Nagato and the Congo can be. All right. Yeah, so this was a really dumb idea of mine, but it's forcing me to learn things by mistakes. Okay, let's resolve this battle. So, the Japanese, well, yeah, let's roll to see what our efficiency values are. Combat efficiency, I should say. Okay, this is not looking good for the Allies, although the Japanese didn't fare very well either. So, there are no die roll modifiers from what I can see, and this means all forces are attacking at 1/4 strength, rounded up. So for the Japanese, that is 33, that's 14, 40, 7, which makes it 12. Their combat strength is 12. So what are they going to do with that 12? Well, they can't destroy a ship until a Dutch ship has been damaged. So they'll spend 8 on the Dutch ship. Let me see what the backside of this guy is. Okay, so they're going to spend 8 to damage the Dutch ship, and then I guess the last 4 to destroy the U.S. Asia fleet. I'm not doing it right now because this battle's simultaneous. So these guys' combat strengths are 5, 6, 7, 8. It's simultaneous, by the way, because it's an intercept. So their combat strength is 8, cut in by a fourth to 2. They cannot harm anyone. They didn't roll a 9, which would allow for you know, like a critical hit kind of thing. So that's unfortunate. So yeah, it was bad. Both these units are pre-war. They're destroyed forever. Post-battle movement. The reaction player is going to, the offensive player is sending Forces E, limping back to Chilat-Jap. Okay, and then this guy is no longer activated. I think we'll leave the Congo there, bring the Nagato back to the Mindanao area, bring the Zuiho in with the Congo, so it's a little more protected now, and then send the Ryujo back where it came from. So it's almost like a free offensive for the Japanese. So yeah, I learned quite a bit on that one. Japanese turn. Definitely want to get this reinforcement aircraft out. I might use this for an offensive in China, or something kind of like that. Yeah. I definitely want to reduce U.S. political will. So that leaves, and I want to do all these like last. That's sort of a common thing I do, is save things like I really want to play till later to see what the Allies do, or the other side does. So I don't think I'm going to need to cancel an offensive by the Allies. I feel like they're on the ropes right now. So we'll go ahead and spin this as a 2-walk offensive with default surprise attack. Now I am a bit limited in what I can do right now because of the inter-service rivalry. So yes, we got a 2-ops card. I need to find a headquarters to activate. We'll go ahead and activate this headquarters here. So that's going to be 3 units can be activated. That's not a lot. I think I'm going to activate Navy since I can't do Army and Navy. Yeah, so I'm going to activate this Marine unit, this heavy cruiser, so it can't transport it, only light cruisers. APDs and, oh, heavy cruisers can transport. Okay, cool. Never mind. So yeah, so it's going to transport that guy. So I got 2. Then I want to find like a little, oh, there's one there too. I want to go find a air unit. Here we go. Here's a naval air unit. It's blocking Mindanao, or it's what am I trying to say? It's using a zone of influence to cover the southern Philippines. So maybe we'll activate this one up here. That's in range of the headquarters and it's in supply, but can it get to where I want it to go? I think I can make this work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Well, what do we have over here? Yeah, I need that aircraft there. You know what? I forgot. I have the Zuiho over here, right? we'll go ahead and activate that guy. Okay, we got some naval units, some air units, and a land unit. Okay, time to move units. So we'll go ahead and move the Zuiho first. It was a 2-aught card, so that means 5 times 2 is 10. That's how many moves it can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm moving down to Teloak Betwang, which I guarantee is not how it's pronounced. It's cruising right down there. As it moves, its zone of influence moves with it. Not that it really matters, but in terms of its movement. But once it gets here, this Dutch aircraft has its zone of influence canceled wherever it overlaps the zone of influence of the Zuiho, and vice versa. So that means there's no zones of influence through these areas in here. There's still some back here, and there's still some back here. Okay, so we got that. And then this Marine unit's hopping on that cruiser, and they're cruising right down here too. Amphibious assault on an empty space. The Allies don't have any reaction cards, so that means they want to try to roll a 4 or less. They rolled a 9, so they do not get to react to this surprise landing at the south of Sumatra. Okay, battle phase is over. There's no battle hex. That's just a straight landing. So we'll do a post-battle movement. The Japanese have taken this location, which means they control the port and the airfield. And you know what? These ships can move 10 more spaces in post-battle movement, but they are just going to hang out there. So, yeah. I don't know how to play the Allies at this time, because now I've gotten, well, I guess it's not as bad as it could be, because this headquarters is not completely knocked out, because it still can exert zones of influence back this way, yeah. But definitely a large part of its zone of influence arc has been canceled out by these Zuiho here. Okay, Allies' turn. They are going to take a pass. They have 2 cards left. Japanese have 3. Yeah, they're going to take a pass. Okay, Japanese turn. And there's this card here the Japanese have available. And it's related to China, so it's time to talk about China. Not the whole thing, but some of it. First off, China is only represented by these coastal hexes here. And then this southern area of China. No units but these Chinese units are allowed in the southern area of China. Otherwise, you know, the rest of China is fine. Each of these hexes actually has an inherent Japanese strength in it. So if like the Allies were to land there, there's actually troops there. But I guess the game's modeling, they are busy in China, so they don't actually have markers. And speaking of abstractions, the entire war of Japan and China, other than, you know, a little bit down here, is modeled with just this chart here. So this says China is stable. And there's various grades of China's situation to the point where it collapses and basically surrenders. So the abstraction of the war in China is basically trying to move this marker back and forth. There's a little more to it than that, but I think that's all I'm going to say about it right now. There's more. There's like this Japanese divisions in China chart. There's the Burma Road. I think we'll talk about those later. So for now, though, I think we're going to play this card, which says, for the event, which says, move the China marker 1 box to the left towards government collapsed. If it moves into the government collapsed box, China surrenders immediately, and it's removed from play. So it moves to unstable front. And so I think, you know, I'm going to try to knock China out of the war as the Japanese, and that has benefits. Any of the major countries getting knocked out, and even some of the territories, reduces the political will of the United States. I think it might also reduce the number of cards the allies get. So I think overall it's good to do. All right. Allies' turn. They're going to take their second and last pass. Okay, Japanese turn. Now, the Japanese card hand is very weak. I have a lot of events. Maybe I shouldn't be playing these events. Maybe I should be using for ops, but I'm going to go ahead and play this card for the event. I'm going to bring in the Tainan Air Unit, which is a special air unit reinforcement. Looks like it's quite a bit weaker on the attack, but equal in defense as the other Japanese army fighters. Its range is double though. Most of them are 2, this one's 4, and its extended range is 5 instead of 4. But in parentheses. I can bring it into any friendly in-supply airfield that is within range of an in-supply Japanese headquarters. And then this card's removed from the game. One nice thing about playing these low-level events is they sort of get weeded out of the deck because they're removed from the game. So here's the headquarters. You know, I noticed I was accidentally, when I was moving aircraft through here, like landing them on Guam and then moving them through. Now, I could have easily landed on other spots, so I guess we can consider that not cheating, but Guam is actually owned by the US at this point. So maybe I should bring this in here, since that is in supply and in range of a headquarters, to exert a ZOI around this, just in case. Okay, I think it's time for the allies. They have 2 cards left to play their one and only offensive card, Operation Romulus, British Aircan Offensive. And of course the title and subtext is for flavor. But we can see here, if I play it for the event, I can activate the Southeast Asian Command Headquarters only, which is of course in Southeast Asia. I had placed it in Calcutta. It has a logistics value of 4. So what that means is, since this is an event, an offensive event, I use this number instead of this number for the number of units to activate. So since SEAC has an efficiency of 1, that's going to be 5 units to activate, even though it's a 2-ops card. And it says only Commonwealth and Chinese units plus US air units may be activated. So, what's up with this area besides just wanting to keep Japan out of here? Well, I was talking about China earlier. There's a little more on China. During the course of the game, Japan can launch China offensives, and they're abstract. You pay 3 ops, and then I think there's a die roll involved to decide if the Japanese win or lose. And if they win, the Chinese government front, this chart, degrades. If they lose, I think it improves. But there's a pretty hefty penalty, I believe, when conducting a China offensive if the Burma Road is open. So that is a road that basically allows China to get supplies from the Indian Ocean, essentially. And when the Burma Road is open, there's basically a -8 modifier to the Japanese offensive. So I want to try to close it. If I close it, as the Japanese, I should say, I want to try to close it. It goes down to -4, and that's if the hump is active. The hump is like an air transport train, I guess. You know, constant, almost like Berlin Airlift, except it's over the Himalayas in the China. So that's not running right now, that air transport train. So if the Japanese close the Burma Road, there's no penalty to a Chinese offensive. So the Japanese if they want to go for China, they want to try to close the Burma Road. I think there's some other bonuses for them closing it. So what is the Burma Road? Well, it is this road here, comes out of Kunming, or maybe we should say it goes into Kunming, and it flows to Lashio in Burma, and then it's open if it can be traced a path to Rangoon, and then from Rangoon over the sea to the map edge or any other friendly port. So that's why it's open. So if the Japanese can get up here and take Rangoon or block any of the spaces through here or get some ZO zone of influence over Rangoon or on the sea hexes around it, they can make it easier for them to launch China offensives. This is a long-winded way of saying, well, as the Allies' offensive, at a minimum, even if I don't attack anyone, I want to get some units down here to block that situation. There's another alternative Burma Road, in quotes, and that is if these 3 hexes with these sort of brown markers in them, if they get built up by the Allies, and I think they have to play a 3 card, I'm not sure, they can build them. So these represent a road and 2 railroad sections that have not been built yet. So the supply situation in this area is pretty rough. So if those get built up, then the Burma Road, or the supply path anyway, can trace up straight through India. So it's another aspect. So if Rangoon gets heavily threatened, the Allies are going to want to invest in that. Yeah, so there's more to talk about in this area, but I don't want to hit too much of it. So I need to plan out an offensive using Southeast Asia Command. Now I don't think I'm going to be able to do much against this Japanese unit, although its attack is 20, its defense is 12, so maybe I could attack it. It's in jungle. That is a -1 on the die roll. Okay, so it's not as defensively oriented as mixed. So maybe I could try to get some strength up there, but it's really going to hurt back, especially if it doubles its strength to 40. Oof, that could wipe out all kinds of stuff. So I need to think about this. But so let's see. So let's talk about these Chinese units. I can move them, so that offensive set of Chinese and Commonwealth and U.S. air units can be activated. So I could activate some Chinese guys. They're only allowed in this section of China, in Burma, and then northern India. And there's a border up here. I think northern India goes down to Dhaka, and then where it's Calcutta, I guess, would be considered the start of southern India. So the Chinese can go up in this area. As well as in this area, in this part of China, and then no one else is allowed in this part of China. It's just part of the rules of, I guess, simulating China without too much detail. So they have a nice 12 defense. I mean, I'd like to get them beefed up on the attack too, but there's a little stronger guy in here. So it may, if all I want to do is defense, maybe I'd activate 1 or 2 of those guys and try to get to them down here. Moving along a transport route, which is basically these roads and railroads, you can ignore the terrain and move at, let's see, trans route half movement point. So you can move fairly fast as a ground unit. We spent, well, we did the event, but the ops tell us, help us with deciding how far things can move. So your land units can get 2 movement points. So for example, these Chinese units, yeah, they can only go 1, 2. So they can't get very far to a defensive location. This Indian unit up here, which is Commonwealth because of the tan color, also is going to have trouble getting down to that border because its transport route where it currently is, this Imphal Railway, is not built, which means it has to, from my understanding, spend the jungle cost to get into this hex, and then it can start using the rail. And jungle cost is 2 movement points, and that's all they get. So yeah, just sort of struggling to decide how I want to do this. I certainly could do a port-to-port transfer of this Indian 1212 in Dhaka. Maybe bring it down to Rangoon to try to protect. This guy is about to be obliterated, right? So, I don't know. I don't want having him there forces the Japanese to have to attack him. so they can't just walk right up to adjacent to Rangoon. So I'm going to think about this. What I want to do here, I think I'm converting from trying to do any kind of attack to trying to prevent Rangoon from being easily taken. Okay, I think I know what I want to do. I think I'm going to activate 2 of the weaker Chinese units, the 312s instead of the 412. I'm going to activate this Indian 1212 up in Dhaka, as well as this British aircraft. So that's 4 units, right? Yeah, and then this Indian unit here. Okay, they're activated. Now I'm going to move them. So this Chinese unit here, it's going to go half, 1, 1.5, 2. Just coming down here to guard the border of Burma. I think it's not quite the border. Border there. This Chinese unit, I'd really like to put it here in this jungle, but I can't. So because of movement issues. So maybe we'll just go half, 1.5. No, we'll go half and then 1, just to here. Okay. This guy's going to spend his entire 2 movement points to move down to Mandalay. Guess I should keep these diagonal for this moment. So it's not exactly what I wanted, but now, like if the Japanese try to rampage up here, they can't come through these hexes. So there's at least a little wall here that they'd have to fight through. I'm going to do a transport from Dhaka down into Rangoon. There's no Japanese EOI over the area, and even if there was, this American fighter would cancel it out. So it's going to come and snuggle in here with this other Indian unit down in Rangoon, make it a little tougher to capture. So of course I want to try to make sure Rangoon doesn't get knocked out of supply, so I need to build up some defenses here. This guy will probably be sacrificed. There's a mechanism to trying to avoid combat, I believe, so maybe he can try to run away if the Japanese attack. And then this British fighter, I think it's going to move down to Mandalay also, just to get a little closer. That's pretty weak sauce offensive. But yeah, the transport situation in this area is pretty lousy. Incidentally, this section here of rail line doesn't exist either. The Japanese, I think, have to play the Bridge on the River Kwai event to build this. And so there's some penalties for that, besides there's not being any rail line. Okay, so I'm not declaring any battle hexes. Actually, before I do anything here, let me keep these guys all angled. The Japanese have a potential to react. They don't have any reaction cards, but that was an OC. No, there's an event. So the event is more complicated than an OC type offensive. An EC, I guess, is that? So the Japanese have a 40% chance of discovering this offensive rather than 20%, and might be able to react. Let's roll. They rolled a 3. That means they detected the offensive and they can react. Okay, I was just thinking, well, if there's no battle hex, where are they going to react to? And it turns out, if there's no battle hex, you can't react. So, post-battle movement, all the troops are just there. I could move this aircraft some more, but I'm not going to. And, yeah, okay, so I'm just sort of repositioning here. Japanese last card play. Tokyo Rose. I'm going to reduce U.S. political by 1 and like weed out this card because it gets discarded. So let's do that. There goes U.S. political will. It was at 8 due to Pearl Harbor. Now it's down to 7. And it's the Allies' last card play. And they're going to go ahead and play the Doolittle Raid. It's a 3-out card, so, you know, part of me says maybe they should be using that for offensives, but the other part of me says let's make sure our political will stays up. Looks like this card allows another card to play, Doolittle Raid Reprisal. So I have to go mark on the turn track here that this was played on turn 2. Doolittle Raid is what that marker means. And then, yeah, so the U.S. political will goes back up, and the U.S. weed out a card. All right, that is the end of card play. Okay, now we start the political phase with the national status segment. That's basically where you look at the different countries and territories. Did any surrender, that kind of thing. The answer is no, nothing's hit the surrender point yet. Then we do the U.S. political will segment. U.S. political will is fine right now. It would go down if certain countries or territories were conquered. I believe if an aircraft carrier is sunk, there might be some other things. But yeah, if their progress of the war isn't being satisfied, but that doesn't happen this early in the game. And so next is the attrition phase. During the attrition phase, all units need to trace supply. And if they can't, they will be attrited. Land and air units will be reduced. If they're already reduced, they'll be destroyed. Naval units do not suffer from attrition, nor do headquarters. But a headquarter being in supply is important because a headquarters is where units must trace supply to or from. And so if headquarters is not in supply, it can't be used to supply units. Now I'm not going to go into all the nuances of supply. There's some nuances, but let's just take a look at the Philippines for starters. So let's look at this headquarters. These Americans are gonna have to trace their supply to this headquarters, right? Is the headquarters in supply? Well, it needs to trace to an ultimate supply source, which for the U.S. would be off the east edge of the map. And it can't. I mean, for starters, it is within an enemy aircraft zone of influence. All this water here, it can't use. Headquarters may trace overland, fine. The aircraft suppress basically shipping supply, but overland is fine. And it can trace through ports, like into and out of friendly ports, but there aren't any. So this headquarters cannot trace to a supply source because of the zones of influence, in particular this one. That means none of these units can trace supply. So this guy's going to flip. This guy's going to flip. And this guy's going to flip. So clearly, placing zones of influence in key spots is incredibly important. This guy, his island is covered by a zone of influence as well. So he cannot trace and is eliminated, never to be rebuilt again because that was a pre-war unit. The only other supply critical situation that I can find on the board for either faction is Malaya, as I'm sure you can imagine. Singapore has a headquarters. It's completely engulfed in zones of influence of the Japanese. It is an out-of-supply headquarters, which means the Australian garrison cannot be supplied in Attrits. The Indian garrison at Kuantan, same thing. So it's just a matter of time. The Japanese don't even have to attack these places, but they probably will. Well, I did indeed find one more supply critical situation, and that is Sumatra. The Dutch 2nd Regiment, I think, engulfed in a zone of influence. It can trace along the island, but then, yeah, where can it trace to? There's another zone of influence here from the Zuiho. So it attrits and is destroyed. Oh, yeah, Sumatra's ready to be taken by the Japanese. Okay, I think that's it. End of attrition phase. So that's the end of the attrition phase. Now it's the end of turn phase. That's basically where we see, hey, did anyone win? No one did. So that's the end of turn 2. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments. I hope you spot any other errors I've made in the rest of turn 2. And keep an eye out for turn 3. Catch you later.